Good morning. Can everybody hear me out there fine?
Yeah.
All right. So many of you know who I am, but for those of you who don't, I'm Nick. I'm Bradley's friend from KCC, where I'm also training to become a minister. And today we'll be looking at James chapter 3, verses 1 to 12. If you want to turn there in your Bibles, we'll get there in a second. But real quick, what I wanted to do is recap where we've been this far in the series. As many of you know, we've been going through the book of James with what Bradley had said at the beginning in mind. He said that no one goes to a mirror and when they walk away forgets what they look like. And in that same way, we shouldn't come to Scripture and when we turn away, forget what it said. And then last week, Bradley talked about the second half of James chapter 2. How faith without works is dead. How the two things are part of the same recipe. If you were here last week, I'm sure you remember his illustration with his little guitar. So I want to open with a word of prayer, and then I'll start reading. God, thank you for this beautiful morning, and thank you for letting us all come together this morning to hear your word. I just ask that you would remind us of the past lessons in this series, and that the words I am about to speak are your words through me, helping to build your kingdom. Amen. So a reading of James chapter 3, verses 1 to 12 from the ESV. Not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. For we all stumble in many ways, and if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle his whole body. If we put bits in the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire! And the tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. For every kind of beast and bird, of reptile and sea creature, can be tamed and has been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. With it we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in the likeness of God. From the same mouth come blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not be so. Does a spring pour forth in the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree, my brothers, bear olives, or a grapevine produce figs? Neither can a salt pond yield fresh water. So we see here that at the beginning of this passage, James starts by saying that not many of you should become teachers. And to understand this, we have to look elsewhere. We have to look at the book of Acts. And throughout the second half of the book of Acts, we follow Paul around as he moves around the Roman Empire. Now, Paul was the son of a Pharisee and trained to be a Pharisee himself. So he was a teacher of the law. So when he came to a new city, he had the ability to walk into any synagogue, and they would let him speak because he was a trained teacher. And this was an honor to him. And what James is saying here is that just because these people that he was writing to were new Christians didn't necessarily mean that they should seek to do the same thing that Paul was doing. Just because he could walk into the synagogue and could be a teacher didn't mean that they should seek after walking into a synagogue and being a teacher also. You might ask why they would want to do this. And in that time, it was a great honor for someone to be able to stand up here in front of people and proclaim the word and interpret the law. And so the second half of the first verse, James says, because you know we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. If we look at that with what I just said about the first half of the verse, we see that James is giving them a warning. He wants to get across that their motives will be judged. Do they want to be teachers for their own honor, or do they want to be teachers to honor God? James goes on to say next that anyone that is able to control his tongue is also a perfect man. And they will be able to control their other actions as well. And moving from that, he starts to give us two illustrations, one of a horse and one of a boat. He says, if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. So here in the first example of the horse, we see it's a direct example of what he's trying to say. If you put a bit into the mouth of a horse and you attach reins, if you pull on the reins, you'll turn the mouth, which will turn the head, and eventually the whole horse will turn its body. And then next he moves into this example of a boat. And see, in that time there was only really two reasons why you owned a boat. It was either you owned a boat for fishing or you owned a boat to transport trade goods. And for us now, I feel like we lose a little bit of that because a lot of people can own a boat for recreation, for doing fun things. You take your boat out for a day on the lake or a day on the river, and you just enjoy yourself. But to the people that he was writing to, this metaphor of a boat stuck with them more because if you owned a boat, it was directly connected to your livelihood. If you had a boat, you used it to put food on your table. So this boat being so important to them, it was guided by not more than just a small piece of wood, the rudder. And that rudder had the power to steer the boat to where the fish were, but the rudder also had the power to steer the boat right into the rocks. And when I think of what this means, I'm reminded of a time when a friend came up to me, and I could tell that he was feeling a little down. And I remember that he said to me, "Nick, whenever you forgot my birthday last week, you really hurt me." And maybe this doesn't seem like much, and maybe it wasn't much, but I feel like it's something that we can all remember a time when we know we let somebody down, and either they told us that or we could tell when next time we saw them. And I'm not proud of this, but in that moment, the first thing I thought to say to him was, how was I supposed to remember your birthday? I was busy with my own life. See, in that moment, my rudder put me right into the rocks, and I hurt a good friendship. Now I say that to say this. Maybe we could all think of a time when our tongue really got us into trouble, and it hurt a relationship. And I feel like if we would think about that for a second and remember it, we would remember if we had just bit our tongues for a second, maybe we could have avoided the whole thing. And we see in the second half of verse 5 that James says, "A great forest is set ablaze by such a small fire." So I'm going to move into this illustration here, and I really want you to hear this because it's important at the end. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I would bet that most of us have been camping at least once in our lifetime, right? See, my favorite part of camping would be to cook over the open fire. And if you were going to make a campfire, let's say we were going to make a campfire right here, the first thing we would do would be build a wall around it somehow, whether it be rocks or a barrel or a grate or something. We would make sure that we contained the fire and we used it safely. But if we didn't use the fire safely, let's say instead we're going to build a fire right here, and we didn't put anything around it. If these instruments were our tents, what would it take? It wouldn't take more than a strong gust of wind to blow a coal or an ember and catch something like a pile of leaves or a table doily, and the next thing you'd know, the whole camp's on fire. and after the camp goes, the whole forest would go. So James continues by saying, and the tongue is a fire. A world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell. This thought that James covers, that the tongue is set on fire by hell, is what he tries to explain to us next. In the next verses, he explains how man has managed to tame all types of animals, of land, of air, of sea, and reptiles. Yet no man has tamed the tongue. With how powerful he's making out the tongue to be, why has no man tamed the tongue? It's like he says, the tongue is set on fire by hell. There's something unnatural. James goes on to say, from the same mouth comes blessing and cursing. My brothers, these things ought not be so. Does a spring pour forth from the same opening both fresh and salt water? Can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine produce figs? James is saying there's something unnatural. Nowhere else in nature do we see something designed to do one thing, and yet it also does another by nature. We don't see a fig tree that bears olives. We don't see a freshwater spring that also produces salt water. If one year we only planted tobacco, we wouldn't also expect to harvest corn. So our tongue was created to bring praise to God, and yet somehow at the same time, it curses others. And this is what he means by it's set on fire by hell. There's something unnatural and unholy about our tongue. And I get what you might be thinking. Nick, what's the point? And why do I care? See, here in chapter 3, James is trying to give us some wisdom about the nature of the tongue. He wants us to get that it has a lot of power, and it can do a lot of good and harm. So what I want each of us to do this week is remember them. If we go about our week, and we're going to talk to people. So if we're in a conversation, let's say we get into a heated debate, or we're talking to somebody on a friend level, or maybe we're just idle chit-chat, just talking about nothing. I just want us to remember that our tongues are powerful, and the words we say have a lot of effect on the people around us. And like that campfire, our tongues, if used properly, have the ability to bring warmth and fellowship with the people around you. But if we use them poorly, they could do a lot of harm. They could do a lot of damage and destruction. So I just want us to remember that as we go throughout the week. And think about, in our conversations, if we're using our tongues well, or if we're using our tongues to destroy. See, here James tells us two things. He tells us, one, that if a man is able to control his tongue, he is perfect and able to control all of his other actions too. But if we flip that around, he's also saying if a man is able to control all of his actions, he is a perfect man and he is able also to control his tongue. And I don't know about any of you, but I know that I'm not perfect, whether it be in tongue or in action. And so the second thing that James says here is that the tongue is set on fire by hell. There's something unnatural in it, and there's something that we won't be able to control and tame on our own. Thankfully, through Christ, we can ask forgiveness for when we mess up, as we forgive those who mess up against us. So, I'm going to bow in prayer, and then Harold, you're going to come up and sing the last song. God, thank you for today. Thank you for the beautiful weather. It was cold this morning, and it's getting warmer now. I just ask that you would be with us as we leave this place, and that you would watch over us, and that you would recall in us the lessons that we've already learned going through this series, and that you would make special note to help us remember to just watch our tongues. Whether it be for good or bad, just help us throughout the week notice whenever we're using our tongues for something good or when we're using our tongues for something destructive. And I ask that you wouldn't let us feel guilty about that, because we know that we have forgiveness from your Son. It's in your Son's name. Amen.